What's good, everybody? Welcome to a video on the biochemistry of zinc. Now, before we get into particular pathophysiology of zinc, I have some general background to go over. Most Americans do not require supplementation because most Americans are not deficient. But it is important to keep in mind where you get zinc in your diet. The easiest, most cost-efficient way is to eat about 6 to 8 ounces of beef a day, which is about an average, cheeseburger or hamburger. Will hit 100% of your RDA. You can certainly get it through plant-based sources as well, but there is a significant decrease in bioavailability. Now, zinc performs a variety of functions in the body. Probably the most prevalent and important function is as a stabilizer molecule in zinc finger domain. Certainly also acts as a cofactor as well as a signaling molecule in the nervous and immune system, and has potent antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties. Now, the zinc finger domain, you can see in this diagram here, we have a protein which consists of a string of amino acids. The particular amino acids that make up the zinc finger domain are 2 histidine molecules, which you can see on the bottom, these 2 amine groups, and 2 cysteine amino acids, where you can see these 2 sulfur groups. And those 4 groups are all balanced out by the 2+ charge of zinc. This is important because, as with everything in biochemistry, structure equals function. The fact that zinc is able to stabilize this domain allows it to consistently bind where it needs to exert its function. A variety of molecules certainly use the zinc finger domain, but the most important include DNA polymerase as well as steroid receptors. Now, steroid molecules make up a variety of very important molecules in our bodies, such as testosterone, estrogen, cortisol, aldosterone, progesterone, to name a few. You can see on the left here just a general pathway of how a hormone is able to exert its effect. We'll say this hormone is vitamin D. Vitamin D will come in, bind to a nuclear receptor complex, and the nuclear receptor will bind to another nuclear receptor vitamin D complex to make a dimer. This dimer will then go through a nuclear pore and bind to DNA in the nucleus of the cell. Now, when this nuclear receptor dimer binds to the DNA, you can see this black diagram on the right. The zinc finger domain is the domain that helps the nuclear receptor dimer to bind to the DNA, to the promoter region. And once this nuclear receptor dimer binds, DNA will transcribe some mRNA. That mRNA will go on to be translated into a protein and exert all of the downstream functions of that particular molecule. This next slide just shows a variety of the steroid molecules like testosterone, DHT, estrogen, estradiol, as well as the primary stress hormone cortisol. And in general, a cholesterol molecule is the base structure for all of the different steroids. So zinc not only helps the sex hormones to bind through the nuclear receptor, but it also acts as a cofactor for 5-alpha reductase and aromatase. And so overall, by having an increase in DHT and a decrease in estrogen, you can see how that would lead the overall system to have an increase in androgenic activity. Additionally, zinc can act as a cofactor in DNA synthesis. Now, you won't see zinc in either of these diagrams. You will see magnesium here that acts as the stabilizer molecule for DNA polymerase. However, obviously zinc will be elsewhere in this DNA polymerase, stabilizing some of the binding domains. Zinc also acts as a cofactor in carbonic anhydrase, which is a very important molecule that takes the water and the carbon dioxide that you generate from the electron transport chain and turns it into bicarbonate and a hydrogen ion. And this is important because this bicarbonate is a basic molecule that helps to balance out any acidity in your blood and, regulate your pH. You can see here that carbon dioxide and water is converted to carbonic acid, but almost immediately it associates into bicarbonate and a hydrogen ion. And you have kind of that organic chemistry reaction of that water going through the process to become bicarbonate and the hydrogen ion on the right here. This just expands on, what we talked about in terms of pH regulation by carbonic anhydrase. It's able to do this in the blood. Furthermore, it acts in the stomach to help release protons into your stomach to be used in hydrochloric acid, as well as bicarbonate to be released in your blood to maintain your pH. And last, it helps to convert carbon dioxide in your kidneys to bicarbonate to be reabsorbed into your blood once again, and it gets rid of protons to overall increase your pH. And you can see how this would be important because the pH of the body is 7.4, which leans slightly basic. So here's just a diagram of what we talked about of carbonic anhydrase being used in the red blood cell to create bicarbonate and then being exchanged out into the blood. That exchange needs to happen with the chloride ion that comes in for the bicarbonate to make sure that the red blood cell maintains the same charge. And I'm not going to really get into the Bohr effect, but certainly the Bohr effect is something that you see in a variety of physiology classes that helps to explain how red blood cells are able to pick up oxygen and drop off oxygen and pick up carbon dioxide and drop off carbon dioxide in the right places at the right time. Here's just a diagram to show what we had previously spoke about, a carbonic anhydrate creating the bicarbonate to be reabsorbed up into the blood, and then the proton to be released into the stomach to be used in hydrochloric acid, which activates a variety of proteins that help break down protein in your stomach. And so this all occurs in a stomach cell. Zinc also exerts some effects on your neurons. It can act both as an inhibitor of NMDA as well as GABA. And so you can see NMDA is generally an excitatory neurotransmitter and GABA is an inhibitory neurotransmitter. So depending on which it is inhibiting, it can certainly have different effects. But this is why if you overdose on zinc, you can sometimes have seizures, because if it over inhibits GABA, which is an inhibitory neurotransmitter, then having a drastic increase and overfiring in your nervous system can cause seizures. And it's called an allosteric inhibitor because it binds not where the normal ligand binds, but at another site of the protein. Zinc also decreases NF-kappa B transcription factor, which when it binds to the DNA ultimately will lead to a translation of cytokines like interleukin-1 beta and interleukin-6 and TNF-alpha. So you can see that here. We won't get into the particular mechanisms, but last, for the immune system, it stabilizes the FOXP3 transcription factor, which helps to produce or translate the inflammatory cytokine interleukin-10. Last, zinc acts as an antioxidant by binding to any free hydroxyl radicals, which prevents them from acting as an oxidant on the various molecules in your blood. Furthermore, it stabilizes the cysteine-rich domains of metallothioneins, and metallothioneins chelate or bind up metals in your body, which may promote oxidation such as iron or copper. I hope this has been informative, and have a good rest of your day.